What is up, YouTube? Casey here, and today we're going to be doing my top 5 games of 2020. This is a video, once again, that I was trying to get out prior to the end of the year. Obviously, it's coming out towards the end of January. School hit, things got busy, COVID happened, a lot of stuff happened. So, doing this review now, it's coming out after my Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity review. So I was able to play all the games I wanted to play for 2020 except Watch Dogs Legion, but I have high doubts that would even break into my top 5. So, originally I was going to do a top 10 list as well, but there just wasn't enough games that I played to warrant even putting on a top 10 list. I would really just be putting them there as placeholders. So this is a top 5 list with 3 important honorable mentions. And let me just state my rules for how I do this first. Again, these lists are personal opinion. I'm not ranking these in terms of just their critical acclaim or how I scored them. I'm also taking into my own favorability of them. And on top of that, I do not include remakes and remasters of games that have been previously released from other years. I don't think that is fair to games that are newer IPs that belong to the year that they came out in, so they don't get put on my list. Alright, so with that said, the first honorable mention I have is actually a remake. It's the Final Fantasy VII Remake right here. This game, I scored what I scored it, but Final Fantasy VII Remake is not just a cut-for-cut remake of the original game. It is actually, it's completely redone in terms of its graphics and engine and everything, but the combat system is completely redone. The story is actually altered quite a bit. It's not the entire story, and once you finish the game, you find out that, spoilers, it's kind of a different timeline. Alternate timeline. And so in that regard, I'd actually qualify it as being a contender to be in a new 2020 game because it's so new, it's so different. It's not actually a cut-for-cut remake. And I'm surprised Square Enix would opt to call it just the FF7 remake. They could have given this a subtitle. It would have warranted it. I don't think it's just a remake. It's definitely a reimagining of the original game. And if you watch my review or my video about it, because I didn't title it a review, I really, really enjoyed this game. It had so much magic to Final Fantasy. It really fleshed out each of the characters in Cloud's group of mercenaries. So yeah, I really enjoyed this game highly. It was almost going to be the 5th place spot for me, except when I was deciding between this and what is my 5th place spot, I decided that my 5th place spot, overall, I think I had a more fun experience with it. It's definitely not as polished, and this game does borrow from its original. So for the fact that the 5th game is more from the ground up entirely, I put it in my list. But yeah, this is the first honorable mention. Second honorable mention is going to be Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PlayStation 5. I think that this game, though it is short in terms of its story, is a great tech demo to show how powerful the PlayStation 5 is, how well it runs, how beautiful games can look now, and the fact that they were able to mix the performance and the fidelity modes into one so you can play at 4K, 60 FPS is freaking great with ray tracing. So aside from that, I also I enjoyed the main story in this game, I think, a lot more than the Spider-Man 2018 game. It just sucks that it was so short. I love the kind of coat of paint for Winter Wonderland over New York City, over New York entirely, that they put on the game for the time period that it's taking place in. So they can reuse the same world as the original Spider-Man game, but this one is in the winter, so it feels different. And then the cast of characters that you meet around in Miles' circle are likable and interesting. So overall, it's a really interesting game. The only thing that holds it back for me is the length of it. Every other game on this list I got way more time out of, and I value them more. So yeah, that's the second honorable mention. Alright, and my last honorable mention is the Demon's Souls remake on the PlayStation 5. Feel bad for anybody who cannot get a PS5 and can't play Demon's Souls Remake, because this game is absolutely breathtaking. The environments, the little set pieces that they have, the armor, clothing, where so much detail. This game is just breathtaking to look at. It's a From Software game, so obviously it's going to be extremely hard. It's a remake of the 2009 Demon's Souls game on the PS3. I never played that one. I think the only From Software game I played was Bloodborne. This is my second one. Again, I had a magical time. I love the community in these games in terms of when you play the game, not in terms of like streaming and all that, but when you ask for help, when you go to help people, there's this sense of like helplessness and helpfulness to it that I really love. On top of that, the game plays very nicely. It has its issues. Like I didn't do a review on the game. I think that the game makes it way too easy to be a mage. If you're magic based, then if you know going in that a mage is the easier path and you pick it, you're gonna have a completely easier time with the main bosses when you get further in the game than you are if you're a melee based character. But aside from that, yeah, I loved this game, but I'm not going to put it on the list because it's a remake. So, yeah. All right, so let's get started with the list. In the 5th place spot, we have the controversial Cyberpunk 2077. If you watch my review, you know I very much enjoyed this game. But after thinking about it for a while now, I'm actually going to lower my score. Instead of giving this a 9, I give it an 8.5. I think that's more... that's a B plus on my scale. I think that's about 86, 87%. I would say it's a good game. It's a great game when it works, and it's a subpar game when it doesn't. But I had a wonderful experience with it. I really didn't run into that many bugs, and that just has to go for my playstyle. Had I run into a lot of bugs, then I probably would have ranked it a lot lower. But I thoroughly enjoyed this game. Seeing the cyberpunk genre explored, very nicely done. My issues with the game are existent, hence why it's in the 5th place spot. But of all the games here, I had a very nice time with this game. I like seeing the main story play out, though I do think it could have been fleshed out more. The RPG mechanics, I think, work in a lot of areas, and in a lot of other areas, they're kind of a misstep. I had a wonderful experience with the game. Side missions I really like. The characters you meet I really like. I stand by the fact that the game should have just been in 3rd person, not 1st person, but to each their own. The game can look absolutely stunning at times. The world design, the cityscapes, everything, what I raved about in the review, I stand by. But then there's also the immersion aspect to this where it breaks because the NPCs are so stupid. The police system doesn't work. You can't explore buildings to a mass level that you think you could. You see these gigantic skyscrapers, and I know I touched upon that, but it is also a bummer that you can't even fly a helicopter or anything and go up there and see it. But through all of that, the lore of the world, and when you investigate the lore even more on your own part from the board games and everything, it just adds to that sense of, wow, this is a world. The game itself can lack in that immersion, but the overall lore that is behind it, it adds to it. And I think over time, I've grown to solidify the fact that I put this at my 5th place spot, even though it has its issues. All right, in 4th place spot, we have Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima was originally going to be my 3rd place spot. The reason I put it up 4th is because the top 3 here, for me, I got way more replay value out of. And I'm not saying Ghost of Tsushima you can't. I'm saying that the other 3 games on this list, their game style and what they are catered towards my own personal interest more. But Ghost of Tsushima, fantastic game. I can't really remember if I gave it a 9 or 9.5, but fantastic game. The fact that an American studio was able to nail medieval Japan samurai era, kudos to Sucker Punch. Like, freaking great game. The aesthetic, the music, the soundtrack, the presentation, it's so well done. It feels like an authentic samurai movie. I can't speak more about that. It's so well done. I love seeing Jin grow from being a samurai who upholds the codes and is very traditional and is trying to be who his uncle wants him to be, to transforming into this Batman-esque character who's an assassin, strikes from the shadows, goes against the code, but is doing what's necessary in order for his clan to survive, to take on this new enemy that has no honor. Your story and Jin's character development coincide with the gameplay, and I found that very fascinating. Every time I killed somebody from the shadows, it was further putting our protagonist deeper and deeper into this new plot thread, and that was very nice to see. Combat system is very arcadey, very video game-esque, but it's so much fun. The fighting, the stances, the countering. Once you will go from, having a hard time taking on two enemies when it comes to just switching between one pose, and then by the end of the game, using all the different gadgets you have, and then switching poses like nothing. It's kind of like poetry, the fighting system. But yeah, if you see my review, I've talked about this game enough. Fantastic game. It's 4th place, so close to 3rd place. So close to 3rd place. It's just the other 3 games, for the type of games they were, catered towards me more, so I got more out of them. In 3rd place, we have Animal Crossing New Horizons. The perfect pandemic game, the perfect quarantine game, the perfect stay-at-home order game. This game came out literally right as everything was closing down in my town. I picked this game up the day it came out, and I got to get it a few hours early because the local GameStop was closing hours early, so they were just giving out copies a day ahead of time. And since that day, I have played this game every single day, and I have about 635 hours into it, which, if you look at other people who have played this for like streaming purposes and such, they have way more than I do. But I'm just saying, I play the shit out of this game. From the content updates that they give every so often throughout the months, to the daily activities that I see, to the community posting inspirations for me to completely redo my island and make me feel like crap because I feel like my island could be so much better, and then a few months later the same thing happens because I can just keep improving and people keep innovating what you can do with the terraforming tools. Oh my goodness, I love this game. It has its stale parts as you play it every day. Like, it's definitely got its weak points at this point now, but it's the perfect game for me. If I don't have anything to play, I can pick this game up and know that I've got at least 20 minutes I can squeeze out of it. And that's my enjoyment for the day. In a lot of cases is playing this game every day because I can take it on the go. I don't have to be home and play this. I can go anywhere and I play this. In the 2nd place spot, the runner-up for Game of the Year for me, 2020, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Pretty much, I feel like I'm always going to be standing by Ubisoft and the fact that the Assassin's Creed games, the last 3 releases have been so freaking good. They don't get enough credit. I never see them on people's top 10, top 5 lists, which is fine. I'm not saying you should. But I feel like there's a lack of attention that these games get that give newcomers that may pick up the series an emptiness in terms of thinking that these games are anything but special, and they are. AC Valhalla, if you watch my rankings list, you should go watch that. Spoilers for that list, though. AC Valhalla is the best Assassin's Creed game, in my opinion. For that reason, and for the reason that this is one of my favorite franchises, it's obviously going to be on the list. But it's in 2nd place spot because I love a good story that takes me a while to beat. And I love a story that forces me to go on the outside of the linear path of the main story and explore other areas to come back to the main story. When a game does that, such as Witcher 3, I think Witcher 3 does that the best that I've seen in some aspects. Valhalla took me 60 hours to finish the main story, and I still have come back to it because of everything else within it, and I'm so excited for the DLC. My Game of the Year for 2020. 1st place spot is The Last of Us Part 2. Again, I will defend this game. As I did with the 5th place spot, I will defend this game. This game takes risks. This game explores themes that have never been done in video games. It does a lot of different stuff, narratively speaking. And I think that that's so important for the medium of video games. We've seen books, TV, and movies explore extremely dark and unique subject matters. When it comes to video games, a lot of the time there's a very traditional aspect to them. And you look at Call of Duty, for example, you have those games where they're just action-packed adventures, macho man, and that's it. You've got games like Final Fantasy, which explore a fantasy aspect to a magical world with twists of different genres and themes and inspirations, whether it's tech-related or magic-related. And that that's refreshing to see, but that's also a recurring thing in a lot of video games. And why I think The Last of Us Part 2 is so special is because it explores a dynamic between characters. It takes the relationship that was developed in a previous title and just turns it on its head. Turns it. turns it on its head in a way that no one was expecting, unless it got leaked for you. And I think was necessary for this world. If it was just another happy ending or another adventure between Joel and Ellie, I think that would have been a disservice. The first game was a showcase of the relationship between a father and a daughter without them actually being related. But it shows that bond that takes place and how far you're willing to go to protect each other. The second game shows what happens when that bond is taken away, when somebody takes that from you. But two sides of the coin as well. There's so much duality between that. And you don't have to like Abby's character to feel that. But you have to understand where she's coming from. And I think if you at least do that, then you're gonna see what I mean at least a little bit with this game. But from not just its story, but also game design, game world, facial animations especially. Yeah, this game, like, so much of Naughty Dog's heart was poured into it. You can tell every frame of this game you play had thought put into it. It is an extremely well-made game. And you can watch my review for all of that. And my other video. Really, none of the other games on this list come close to The Last of Us Part 2 for me. I am a narrative-based player. And so, yeah, The Last of Us Part 2 is my game of the year. Obviously, we'll have disagreements. I don't think a single person is going to have the exact same list I did. And with that said, I would love to see you guys comment your own list down below. So, yeah, thank you for watching.